The night sky was calm, the stars were bright, and the human colonies felt safe. Children played in the streets of the outer worlds. Families laughed inside their homes, and soldiers stood guard but felt no danger. No one knew that everything was about to change. No one was ready for what was coming. At first, it was only a whisper, a strange signal from deep space. It was weak, broken, almost like noise. Scientists thought it was a mistake, a burst from a dying star. But then the signal grew stronger, clearer, and it repeated again and again. A pattern, a warning, a shadow moving closer. The first ships appeared on the edge of human space. They were dark, massive, and shaped like blades. They did not shine with lights. They did not announce who they were. They simply moved forward, silent and cold. When the telescopes zoomed in, humanity saw the truth. It was not one ship, not 10, not 100. It was thousands, 9,900 warships, stretching across the black sky like a wall of death. Panic spread across the colonies. Governments called emergency meetings. Soldiers prepared weapons. Civilians rushed into shelters. But no one had ever seen a fleet this large. No one had ever faced such a storm. The invaders did not send a message. They did not ask for peace. They did not offer a chance to surrender. The first world they reached was called Halron 3, a mining colony with 50,000 people. The aliens did not land. They did not even slow down. They opened fire from orbit. In seconds, cities turned into fire, the ground split apart, and the colony was gone. 50,000 souls, erased in one strike. News spread like wildfire. Screens across human space showed the burning of Halron 3. People screamed, people cried, and people prayed. Some believed the invaders were demons. Others believed they were gods. But all agreed on one thing. Humanity was in danger of extinction. The fleet moved fast, one world after another, falling into silence. Human warships tried to fight, but their missiles turned to dust against alien shields. Laser fire did nothing. Railguns shattered harmlessly on the enemy hull. The aliens did not even slow down. They cut through human defenses as if swatting flies. In the command centers of Earth, officers stared at their screens in disbelief. The enemy was too strong, too fast, too many. Every strategy collapsed. Every hope seemed small. For the first time in centuries, humanity felt powerless, and fear became a greater weapon than any gun. But in the chaos, there was also courage. Young pilots volunteered for suicide missions. Scientists worked day and night to find a weakness. Civilians formed resistance groups, building bunkers, preparing for invasion. Across the stars, humanity began to rise to its greatest test. The aliens spread like fire, but no one knew who they were. What did they want? Why did they come? Why destroy everything in their path? There were no demands, no warnings, only silence and destruction. Every burning world carried the same message. Humanity was nothing to them. Only dust, only prey, only obstacles to erase. But deep inside the human spirit, something else began to grow. Anger, defiance, the will to fight even when defeat seemed certain. On a small colony named Vera 12, a boy looked up at the sky. He saw the alien ships like shadows across the stars. His family was gone, his home was gone. But he whispered to himself, "We will not fall forever." And that whisper became a fire in the hearts of many. The arrival of the 9,900 ships was not only the beginning of war, it was the beginning of a legend, a story of survival, of sacrifice, of humans standing against the impossible. No matter how dark the night became, no matter how many worlds burned, humanity was not finished. Not yet. And so, as the alien fleet moved deeper into human space, every soldier, every pilot, every child who still lived, looked up at the stars with fear, but also with determination. The invasion had arrived. The war had begun. And the fate of the human race would now be decided in fire and blood. The alien fleet had already burned 3 colonies. Entire cities had turned into ash, families vanished, and soldiers died without firing a second shot. Every broadcast carried the same images. skies filled with black ships, flames rising, and silence after destruction. But still, no one had spoken to the invaders. No message, no signal, only death. Human leaders demanded answers. The United Earth Council sent dozens of hails across all frequencies. They used every language, every signal, even ancient radio waves. But the aliens ignored them. The only reply came in fire. Each time a human ship approached, it was destroyed in seconds. It was as if the invaders saw humans as insects, unworthy of words. The people grew restless. Rumors spread across the colonies. Some believed the aliens were machines with no soul. Others thought they were gods who punished humanity for arrogance. But soldiers had no time for myths. They needed proof, they needed to know what they were fighting. The first chance came on the outer colony of Rylos. The fleet sent a small patrol of alien ships. But this time the humans were ready. Dozens of fighters, fast and silent, launched from hidden bases in the mountains. They attacked not to win but to capture. One alien vessel was trapped in an ambush. Bombs disabled its engines and heavy nets pulled it down. The ship crashed into the desert of Rylos, half buried in fire and smoke. When the soldiers approached, the air was filled with strange sound, like whispers, like voices speaking inside their heads. The hull of the ship pulsed like a beating heart, black metal shifting as if alive. The soldiers cut their way in, guns ready, breath heavy. And then they saw them, the aliens. They were tall, almost twice the height of a human. Their skin glowed faintly, like burning coal. Eyes of white fire watched every movement. Their arms were long, ending in claws sharp enough to tear steel. But the most terrifying part was not their bodies. It was the feeling. Every soldier felt cold fear crawl inside their mind. The aliens did not need words. They pushed thoughts into human brains. Images of fire, war, and endless hunger. One soldier screamed and fired his weapon. The blast echoed in the alien ship. The alien fell, but even in death its body melted like ash and smoke, leaving nothing behind. The others advanced, silent, powerful, unstoppable. It took all the soldiers had to bring them down. Explosives, flames, and sheer desperation. In the end, only 6 humans walked out alive. And what they carried was not victory. It was fear. The scientists studied the wreckage. They discovered that the ship was not only metal. It was alive, a fusion of machine and organism. It healed its wounds. It grew new armor. It whispered through strange signals. And they learned something worse. The fleet was not here to conquer. It was here to consume. Every city burned. Every body taken. Every resource drained. The aliens fed on destruction itself. The council broadcast the findings across the human colonies. They wanted to warn, they wanted to prepare, but the truth only made panic stronger. People saw no way to fight a living fleet. Some colonies even surrendered before the aliens arrived, hoping mercy would be shown. But there was no mercy. Every surrender ended the same. Fire from the sky, silence in the streets, nothing left but shadows. Still, even in despair, humanity looked for hope. Pilots trained harder, soldiers volunteered, and secret missions were planned. If they could capture one alien ship, maybe they could capture more. If they could understand the enemy, maybe they could break them. Every whisper of fear carried another whisper of defiance. On Earth, a child asked his mother, "Why don't they talk to us?" The mother, watching the burning skies on the news, whispered back, "Because to them we are not people, we are prey." The first contact with the aliens had finally come. Not through peace, not through words, but through fire and death. And in that moment, humanity understood the truth. This was not a war for land. This was not a war for power. This was a war for survival. A war where one side would vanish forever. But in the silence of the stars, promise was made. The humans who survived Rylos swore to fight. The scientists swore to find answers. The soldiers swore to never kneel. And across every colony, in every broken home, the same words spread like fire. We will endure. The aliens had spoken through death. But humanity had answered through defiance. The first contact was over. The true war was about to begin. The news of the Rylos incident spread across every human colony. Now humanity knew what they were facing. These were not conquerors who wanted land or power. These were predators who only knew how to consume. And the only choice left for mankind was to fight or to vanish. In the command halls of Earth, leaders gathered under dark screens. Maps of human space were filled with red marks, showing the path of the alien fleet. If nothing was done, every colony, every world, every ship would be gone within a year. The council demanded action. The generals gave them only one plan. For every alien ship, humanity would launch a mission. 9,900 missions, each one designed to sabotage, destroy, or cripple a single alien vessel. It was madness, it was impossible, but it was the only plan humanity had. Pilots, soldiers, engineers, and even civilians volunteered. They knew most would never return. But still, they raised their hands. Some were driven by duty, some by revenge, some by love for the families they had lost, and others joined simply because they could not sit and wait to die. Training began in secret bases carved under mountains and hidden in deep space stations. Every crew learned how to move silent, how to strike fast, how to face the impossible. They were given small ships, weak compared to the alien giants, but packed with explosives, hacking tools, and strange devices designed by desperate scientists. The missions were not meant to win in open battle. They were designed to sting, to bleed the enemy, to show humanity could bite back. The first wave of missions launched together. Thousands of human ships slipping into the dark. Some carried only 2 people, some carried entire teams. Every one of them knew this could be their last flight. As the fleets separated, radios carried the same farewell. Humanity endures. And then there was silence. The missions began. On the colony of Eridon, one human team slipped onto an alien supply ship. They planted charges inside its strange living walls. The explosion tore it apart, the first alien ship destroyed. The crew never made it back. But their names became the first heroes of the war. Another mission struck in the asteroid belts. A team of miners turned fighters rammed their drill ship into an alien cruiser. The blast ripped both vessels apart. The aliens were stunned. Humanity cheered, but the miners were gone, leaving only dust. Thousands of missions burned like sparks in the dark. But for every spark, there was silence. Alien defenses grew sharper, their weapons faster. Human ships vanished without a trace. Entire teams disappeared. Their signals cut mid-scream. It was as if the void swallowed them whole. Reports came back slowly. Of the 9,900 missions, only 18 had returned with success. 18. The number was so small it felt like nothing. Entire fleets had been sacrificed. Entire worlds had lost their best and bravest. But those 18 missions became legends. They showed it was possible. The aliens could be hurt. The invincible could bleed. The survivors told stories no one wanted to believe. They spoke of entering alien ships that felt like walking inside a living creature. Walls pulsed like flesh, doors opened like mouths, and corridors shifted like veins. They fought monsters that looked half machine, half demon, creatures that screamed without sound, that clawed through steel as if it was paper. One survivor said, "It was not a ship, it was a nightmare given form." Most survivors were broken. Some lost their voices, some lost their minds, but all carried proof. Alien corpses, fragments of living metal, and strange devices that hummed with unnatural energy. The scientists studied them with wide eyes, and they whispered the same shocking truth. The aliens were not gods. They were not perfect. They could be killed. The council broadcast the news, not as a promise of victory, but as a reminder that resistance was not pointless. The missions had cost millions of lives, but they had carved cracks into the enemy. Small cracks, fragile cracks, but cracks nonetheless. In the streets of burning colonies, people clung to those numbers. 18 missions, 18 small victories against thousands of losses. But 18 sparks in the dark were better than none. 18 sparks could start a fire. Yet, behind the hope there was also a shadow. If only 18 missions had succeeded, what had happened to the rest? What became of the thousands of crews who never returned? Some believed they had been destroyed. Others feared something worse. That the aliens had taken them. That the crews had become fuel for the living ships. Or worse, that they had been changed, twisted, remade into something no longer human. The truth was hidden in silence. But silence itself became a weapon of fear. Every time a new mission launched, families prayed, but many never saw their loved ones again. Still, the missions continued. Still, humanity refused to stop, because even if the chances were 1 in 1,000, even if the cost was everything, as long as one mission returned alive, humanity still had hope. And so, in the endless dark, as the alien fleet advanced without mercy, tiny human ships kept flying, tiny sparks against a storm, and though most were extinguished, the few that survived lit a fire across the stars. The missions had begun, the war had changed, and the legend of the 18 would never be forgotten. The galaxy called them heroes, but the survivors of the 18 missions did not feel like heroes. They returned broken, scarred, and haunted. Each carried something far heavier than metals. They carried memories no human should ever carry. When the first survivor ship limped back to a human base, it was hardly a ship anymore. Hull torn, engines dying, most of its crew gone. The few who crawled out were pale, silent, and trembling. They had destroyed one alien vessel, but their eyes told another story. A story of pain. A story of fear that words could not explain. Medical teams rushed to help. Doctors checked their wounds, but the worst injuries were not on the skin. Some survivors screamed in their sleep. Some refused to speak at all. Others stared into the distance as if they were still inside those alien ships, as if the nightmare had followed them home. The council demanded answers. They wanted to know what these men and women had seen. The survivors gathered in halls, their voices shaky but steady enough to speak. And when they spoke, the entire room fell silent. They told of ships that breathed, corridors that shifted, walls that pulsed like flesh. They said the air itself was alive, whispering strange voices into their minds. They described monsters built from both machine and bone, claws of steel, jaws of fire, bodies that twisted into shapes no human mind could fully hold. Some crews had fought through entire armies inside just one alien vessel, and each step deeper into the ship felt like walking into the belly of a living nightmare. One pilot spoke of hearing her dead brother's voice. She swore the alien ship whispered his name. Another soldier said he saw shadows of his family on the walls, their faces twisted in pain, their hands reaching out for help. The scientists argued these were hallucinations, but the soldiers shook their heads. They were too real, too sharp, too cruel. The survivors carried trophies too, fragments of living metal, pieces that pulsed like they still had blood, alien weapons that hummed when touched, as if hungry for more, and one crew brought back a corpse. It was the first alien body humanity had ever seen whole. Tall, burning eyes turned to ash, flesh that rippled between solid and liquid. Its body crumbled fast, but not before scientists studied it. They learned the aliens were not endless gods. They were living, breathing beings, beings that could die. This discovery spread hope like fire. For the first time, people believed the aliens could be defeated. But the survivors themselves did not celebrate. They knew the cost of that knowledge. They had watched their crews die one by one. They had walked through nightmares and returned alive only by chance. Many survivors could not return to normal life. Some refused to leave their bunkers. Some could not sleep in silence. Others kept sharpening their weapons, waiting for the next mission. The war had carved something inside them that could never be healed. Still, they became symbols. Across the colonies, their names were whispered like legends. Children learned their faces. Soldiers carried their stories. Recruitment posters painted them as shining heroes. But the truth was different. They were not shining. They were broken pieces of humanity. still holding together only because they had no choice. In secret meetings, the survivors shared stories only with each other. They spoke of things they did not dare tell the council. One group said they had seen cages, filled with humans still alive. Another swore that some missing crews had been turned into weapons. Voices crying from inside alien machines. The council dismissed these as madness. But the survivors knew better. The enemy was not only killing. The enemy was changing, twisting, consuming. Despite their pain, the survivors were called again. The council had no choice. If humanity wanted a chance, they needed those who had walked inside alien ships and lived. Some refused, their minds too broken, but others stood once more. They did not fight because of glory. They fought because they knew what waited if they failed. The survivors trained new crews. They taught them how to move inside the alien ships, how to ignore the whispers, how to fight the nightmares, how to kill what should not be alive. Their eyes were cold, their voices steady. They were teachers born from fire, and their students looked at them with fear, but also with respect. Across human space, the survivors became a symbol of two truths. The aliens were not gods, and humans, even broken, could stand against them. But every night, when the lights dimmed and the noise of war faded, the survivors sat alone with their thoughts. They remembered the faces of their lost crews, the screams, the burning walls. They remembered how close death had followed, and they whispered the same question to themselves. How many more must die before this ends? The answer never came, only silence. And in that silence they understood. The war had only just begun. Their survival was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of something darker. And humanity was still standing on the edge of the abyss. Among the 18 missions that returned, one carried something far more important than survival. They had brought back a secret, a discovery that would change everything. Their ship was damaged, almost broken in half. Engines sputtered, oxygen low, half the crew gone. But inside the cargo hold, locked in sealed chambers, lay a piece of alien technology. It was not just metal, it was alive, a shard from the heart of an alien warship, still pulsing, still humming like it carried a heartbeat. The crew had risked everything for it. They had fought through corridors that twisted like living intestines. They had lost friends to shadows that screamed without sound. And in the end, they had ripped the shard from the core of the ship. It had burned their hands, melted their tools, and almost killed them, but they carried it back, refusing to let go. When the scientists first saw it, they froze in awe. The fragment glowed with shifting colors, sometimes black, sometimes silver, sometimes bleeding red. It felt hot one moment and freezing cold the next. Machines around it failed, lights flickered, and even human hearts beat strangely near it. The shard was dangerous, but it was also a gift, a key to understanding the invaders. For weeks, the best minds on Earth studied it. They used microscopes, scanners, and even quantum computers, but the shard resisted all logic. It healed when cut, it screamed in static when burned. One night, a researcher swore it whispered her name. Another collapsed after hearing voices telling him to let go of fear. Still, they continued, risking madness for answers. And then the breakthrough came. Hidden deep inside the shard's patterns, they found code. Not numbers, not letters, but a living sequence. It was not technology alone, it was biology fused with machine. The aliens had built ships that were not built at all. They were grown. Every warship, every weapon, every monster they had faced was alive. And like all living things, they could be starved, poisoned, or broken. The scientists rushed this discovery to the council. At first, the generals did not believe. How could something so powerful be alive? How could it bleed? But then the shard itself reacted. When exposed to human blood, it shivered, it opened, and inside, they found a terrifying truth. The aliens were dying. Their ships needed something they no longer had, something humans carried in abundance. The shard revealed why the fleet had come. Not for land, not for resources, but for survival. The aliens were searching for what their own bodies lacked. Cells, blood, genetic fire. Humanity was not prey by accident. Humanity was food. The revelation spread like wildfire. Some wept in despair. Others clenched their fists in rage. To the aliens, humans were not enemies or rivals. They were nothing but fuel. Every burning city, every vanished crew, every stolen body, it was all part of a harvest. But the scientists saw hope in this horror. If the aliens were alive, then they could be killed. If their ships bled, then their ships could die. If they needed humans to survive, then humans held the weapon. For the first time, there was a weakness. For the first time, humanity could strike back with knowledge instead of blind sacrifice. Secret projects began immediately. In underground labs, they built weapons using the Shards code. New viruses designed to infect alien tissue. New energy pulses that burned through their living armor. It was dangerous, untested, and desperate. But humanity had no other choice. The survivors of the Shard mission were hailed as legends. But they sat in silence, their eyes dark. They knew the cost of their discovery. Every friend they lost, every scream they still heard at night, all of it had been traded for a single shard of hope. One of them whispered during an interview, "We stole their blood, and now they will come for us." Her words chilled everyone who heard them, because she was right. The shard had not stopped whispering. It pulsed louder every day, as if calling to its masters, as if the aliens could feel their loss, as if they already knew where to strike next. The council ordered silence. The truth was too dark to spread. They told the people only half, that the aliens could be hurt, that their ships were alive. But they did not speak of the harvest. They did not tell the colonies that humans themselves were the prize. In hidden corners, however, the rumor spread. Families whispered in fear. Soldiers clenched their teeth. Every human began to wonder if their blood was the reason their worlds burned. Still, hope outweighed fear. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had something new. A secret, a discovery, a weapon that could turn the tide. The shard was both curse and blessing, a reminder of what was lost, and a promise of what could still be won. And so, as the alien fleet pressed deeper into human space, humanity prepared for the next chapter of war. Not with blind missions, not with suicide runs, but with weapons carved from the enemy's own flesh. The secret discovery had changed the war. The hunters had revealed themselves. And now, for the first time, the prey had teeth. For months, humanity had only known fear. Every battle had been defeat. Every defense crushed. Every colony burned. But the shard had changed everything. The secret discovery gave humans their first real weapon. For the first time, the Council did not speak of survival alone. They spoke of resistance. They spoke of striking back. The new weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever built. Some were viruses designed to infect alien ships, invisible clouds that spread like fire through their living walls. Others were energy bursts that disrupted the strange heartbeat of alien metal. And the most dangerous of all were nanoblades, tiny machines that ate through alien tissue like acid. Every weapon was experimental, untested, unstable, but humans no longer had the luxury of waiting. The first counterattack began near the broken colony of Vera 12. The alien fleet had surrounded the ruins, feeding on what was left. Human commanders saw the chance. A small fleet of modified ships jumped into the system. Not to run, not to hide, but to fight. It was the first time humans had entered a battle with hope instead of fear. The alien ships turned, weapons glowing. They fired beams of fire that could cut a city in half. But this time, the human shields held. Not forever, but long enough. The new weapons were unleashed. Viruses spread through the void. Invisible but deadly. They crawled into the living armor of alien ships. And the giants began to shiver. Their walls rippled. Their lights flickered. Their weapons faltered. For the first time, an alien warship screamed. Not in words, not in sound, but in a psychic echo that reached every human mind. A roar of pain, a roar of fear. And then the ship broke apart, bleeding light and smoke. Human soldiers cheered. The impossible had happened. The invincible had fallen. Battle after battle, the pattern repeated. Human fleets attacked in sudden strikes. The new weapons cut into alien ships. And the monsters that once seemed untouchable began to fall. It was not easy. Every victory cost lives. But for each alien ship destroyed, hope grew stronger. The people who once hid in shelters now raised their fists to the sky. The prey had become predators. The survivors of the Shard mission watched from command screens, their faces cold, their eyes sharp. They knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would adapt, they always adapted. But in these moments, humanity had shown the truth. They were no longer running. They were no longer only prey. The aliens struck back harder. Their fleets grew more vicious. Their weapons burned brighter. Entire human fleets were lost. But for every human fleet destroyed, 2 alien ships fell with them. The balance of fear had shifted. The war was no longer a one-sided massacre. It had become a true battle. Across the colonies, humans rebuilt. Cities once reduced to ash lit up again. Factories worked day and night, building more weapons, more ships, more hope. Children who once cried in silence now painted pictures of human ships burning alien giants. Songs of resistance spread like fire. Whispers became shouts. We can win. The words echoed through every world, and every soldier carried those words into battle. But victory came with a shadow. Each time the new weapons were used, the Shard pulsed stronger. Scientists noticed strange signals spreading across the stars. It was as if the aliens could feel the wound in their flesh. As if every fallen ship screamed to the fleet. The more humans fought back, the more the aliens gathered. They were not retreating, they were preparing. Something larger, something darker was coming. In the council chambers, generals argued. Some wanted to push forward, to keep striking until the aliens broke. Others warned caution. They feared the enemy was waiting for humanity to grow bold. They feared the counterattacks were walking into a trap. The survivors of the Shard mission spoke only once. The enemy bleeds, but they are not beaten. Their words silenced the room. No one wanted to hear it, but everyone knew it was true. Even so, humanity could not stop. They had come too far, sacrificed too much. The blood of millions demanded that they keep fighting. Every battle won gave meaning to every life lost. And so, the fleets grew larger. The weapons grew deadlier. The fire of humanity burned brighter. Across the stars, the war had changed. The hunters now knew what it meant to be hunted. For the first time in history, the alien fleet felt something new. Fear. But in their silence, in their endless black ships, they prepared something greater. Something the humans had not yet seen. The war was not ending. The war was only entering its darkest hour. And as humanity celebrated its victories, as people raised their voices in songs of hope, the shadows of the alien fleet gathered. A storm larger than any before was coming, and in its heart, a new terror waited. The greatest battle was yet to come. The victories of humanity burned bright across the stars. Alien ships had fallen. Colonies had been defended. Hope had returned. But in the silence between battles, something darker stirred. The Shard pulsed louder every day, glowing like a heartbeat that was not human. And the survivors whispered the same warning. The enemy is not finished. Then the storm arrived. The alien fleet gathered into one vast armada. Not scattered, not spread across colonies, but united. Thousands of black warships moved as one. They blotted out suns, turned night into endless shadow, and at their center floated something larger than anything humans had ever seen. A ship the size of a moon, a living fortress, a command heart, the true core of the invasion. Scouts who saw it died before they could even transmit, but fragments of data revealed its shape. A colossal sphere of shifting flesh and steel, eyes like burning stars carved into its surface, weapons large enough to erase entire worlds in one breath. The council gave it a name whispered with dread. The Devourer. Every colony knew what it meant. If the Devourer reached Earth, humanity was finished. There would be no more battles, no more hope, only silence. And so the call went out across the stars. Every ship, every soldier, every survivor was summoned. This would be the last stand. Fleets gathered in the dark skies above Earth. Thousands of human ships, patched together from wreckage, rebuilt with stolen alien parts. Some were sleek, some were broken, some barely flew at all. But together they formed the largest human fleet ever seen. Pilots strapped themselves in, whispering final prayers. Families hugged in bunkers below, knowing this was the day that would decide everything. The survivors of the 18 missions stood at the front, their faces cold, their eyes unblinking. They knew better than anyone what waited inside the Devourer. But they did not run. They stepped forward because they had already walked through hell once. Now they would do it again. The battle began with silence. The Devourer drifted forward, surrounded by thousands of alien warships. The human fleet fired first. Missiles, lasers, railguns, and the new weapons built from the shard. The void filled with fire. Alien shields shimmered. Ships exploded. Shadows burned. But the Devourer did not stop. It absorbed the fire like rain, its skin rippling, its eyes glowing brighter. Then the enemy answered. Beams of energy brighter than suns tore through human fleets. Dozens of ships vanished in a blink. The sky became fire. The earth shook beneath. But still the humans fought. Every pilot screamed defiance. Every captain pushed forward, because there was no place left to run. The survivors led the strike teams. They dived into the heart of the alien fleet, weaving between giants. Their ships carried the deadliest of the new weapons, viruses tuned to the shard, nanoblades sharp enough to tear through the Devourer's flesh. They knew most would not come back, but that was the cost of survival. One by one, human ships pierced through the alien walls. They rammed, they detonated, they sacrificed themselves to carve a path. The Devourer loomed closer, its surface shifting, mouths opening, eyes watching. It was alive in ways no human could understand. It screamed into every mind, filling skulls with burning voices. Submit, submit, submit. But humanity answered with only one word. No. Strike teams landed on the Devourer's surface. They fought through endless corridors of living metal. Every wall moved. Every shadow turned into a monster. The survivors guided them, teaching them how to fight, how to endure. Some teams were lost instantly, swallowed by shifting halls. Others fought until their last breath, leaving trails of fire and blood. In the core of the Devourer, the shard pulsed. It was larger now, like the heart of a god. Every beat shook the ship. Every pulse threatened to break human minds. But the survivors pressed forward, carrying the final weapon. A device built from the shard itself. A weapon that could poison the heart of the alien fleet. If it worked, humanity would live. If it failed, humanity would end. The final battle raged around them. Earth's skies burned with fire. Fleets shattered. Soldiers screamed into static. But in the heart of the Devourer, the survivors planted the weapon. The shard resisted, screaming in every human mind. It begged, it threatened, it showed visions of burning worlds. But the humans did not falter. They had seen too much, lost too much to stop now. The weapon detonated. A pulse of light spread through the Devourer. The living walls convulsed. The eyes dimmed. The screams turned into silence. The giant began to collapse, tearing itself apart from within. Across the stars, the alien fleet shuddered. One by one, their ships fell silent. Their weapons died. Their shadows faded. The war was not over, but for the first time the tide had turned. The last stand had not ended in silence. It had ended in fire, and in that fire humanity had survived. As the survivors crawled back to their ships, broken and bleeding, they looked out at the stars. For the first time the skies were clear. For the first time the aliens were not advancing. And for the first time hope felt real. The invasion had begun with 9,900 ships. It had burned worlds, taken millions and shattered lives, but humanity had endured. Against all odds, against all darkness, they had endured, and now, as the survivors whispered into the silence, they carried the same promise. This is not the end. This is the beginning.